In Arthur Phillips' second novel, The Egyptologist, 2004, the story is set in 1922 and revolves around archaeologist Ralph Trilipush, who embarks on a quest to discover the long-lost tomb of an unknown pharaoh in Egypt. At the outset of the novel, Ralph has already located what he believes to be the tomb's entrance, but must leave Egypt to secure funding for his next expedition. His relationship with his fiancée, Margaret Fanarin, is strained due to her father's disapproval. They exchange letters in an attempt to reconcile. Ralph presents his findings to potential investors, a group of wealthy men from Boston, primarily from the construction industry. They express skepticism about the existence of more treasures in Egypt, fueled in part by rumors circulating at Harvard that suggest the pharaoh Adamhadu might be a hoax. Ralph, however, insists that certain individuals at Harvard are determined to see him fail, which convinces the investors to fund one last expedition. Among the investors is CCF, Margaret's financially troubled father, who hopes to recoup his investment but remains suspicious of Ralph's intentions toward his daughter. Meanwhile, in Australia, private investigator Harold Farrell becomes involved in the case after receiving information about Ralph. He discovers inconsistencies in Ralph's story, leading him to believe that Ralph may not be who he claims to be. Ralph was previously presumed dead during World War I in Egypt, alongside a British Army officer who was his lover. Harold suspects that the man posing as Ralph might be a conman named Paul Caldwell, who served alongside Ralph. Although Harold's investigative skills are limited, he believes that Paul observed Ralph closely enough to either murder him or assume his identity after Ralph's accidental death. Simultaneously, while Ralph searches for Adamhadu's tomb, the real historical figure, Howard Carter, stumbles upon the tomb of King Tutankhamun, which becomes an instant sensation. However, Ralph's tomb contains only a series of empty rooms with doors that require extensive preparation to open. Frustration mounts among his diggers, many of whom abandon him to work on Carter's excavation. In a desperate bid, Ralph paints hieroglyphics and figures on the chamber walls, narrating the life of Adamhadu, paralleling his own experiences. His ruse fails to convince his investors, who cease sending funds. When he opens the final chamber and finds it empty, he resorts to creating his own artifacts, including a fake mummified cat made from a dead stray cat. Margaret, fed up with Ralph's growing obsession and feeling used by both him and her father, writes to end their relationship. CCF arrives in Egypt to inspect the tomb, receiving Ralph's letters describing non-existent gold and treasures. He is horrified by the state of the tomb, Ralph's deteriorating mental state, and the crude artwork on the walls. To prevent exposure, Ralph murders CCF using digging equipment and concocts a story to cover up the crime. Despite being injured and suffering from an infected wound, Ralph manages to hike to Carter's excavation site to steal essentials and mock Carter's discovery as inferior to his own. Harold follows Ralph to the dig site in pursuit of the truth and a confession of murder. Ralph eludes him, and Harold realizes he lacks evidence unless he can find a body. The truth about Paul and Ralph's identity switch is eventually unveiled. While serving in the military, Paul had blackmailed Ralph's lover, Hugo Marlowe, into providing him with Egyptology lessons. However, Hugo fabricated much of the information he shared, inventing a story about a tomb they supposedly discovered in Egypt. When Hugo sought to eliminate Paul as a threat, Paul turned the tables and killed him, subsequently assuming Ralph's identity to search for the fictitious tomb. In the novel's final chapter, Ralph continues to decorate the empty tomb with various possessions. He then enters the ultimate chamber, wraps himself in a sheet, and applies chemicals to preserve his body. He becomes the mummy of Adamhadu, and the vacant tomb becomes a monument to his enduring legacy. I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like if you did and be sure to subscribe. Thank you.